There's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
This is Steve Zing from Danzig, Samhain, Mourning Noise and Blak29. And you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, I bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a huge, huge privilege to welcome back Danzig's Steve Zing, who has a new band project called Blak29, and they will release their sophomore album entitled The Waiting via Cleopatra Records on March 3rd. Also, check out the debut single Destroyer and new single Bleeding Love. So, we're going to talk to Mr. Steve about all this good stuff. So, how you doing, my man? Welcome back to the podcast.
I'm doing great. I just heard you call yourself the Bod Father. That's awesome. That's great.
Hey, everybody has a nickname. So, you know what? I've had this since high school, so roll with it. You know what I mean?
Hey, embrace it.
That's exactly right.
Embrace it. Good for you. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing awesome. Glad to have you back on here and talk about this new project that you have going on. How long had you been wanting to collaborate with Dan Tracey, or who got the ball rolling first with Blak29?
So I've known Dan Tracey for, it has to be probably 35 years.
Oh, wow.
And we knew each other for a long time before we actually started playing with each other. And we were in a series of bands and things, and they were fun bands. The problem was the other members decided that they wanted to go off in their own direction because success, whatever you want to deem success is, didn't come fast enough. So it left myself and Dan just kind of waiting around and thinking like, all right, who else are we going to get to play? And Dan had mentioned, I've only knew Dan as a bass player, right? I never collaborated with him because previously it was me and the guitar player. So we got together because I own a home studio, and I said, let's write a song and record it. And we did one song, and it came out great. And we kind of looked at each other. We're like, wow, this ain't so bad. I didn't realize you were such a great guitar player. So, and that's how that started. And we just continued and we're like, well, we don't need anybody else, right? I'm doing the drums and the vocals. You're doing the guitar and the bass. Perfect. It worked.
Now you've done, many stints with Danzig, Mourning Noise, all these other bands, but is this a breath of fresh air for you and Dan doing this band? Because it kind of takes you out of your element a little bit. It kind of like says, this is Steve Zing and Dan's band. You know what I mean?
There's an element as to, even with Mourning Noise, because, I wrote a lot of the songs back in the day and still now, that's a collaboration of four people. But with this, what's different about it is, so, I come from, obviously, my background when I was a kid, my mom would play 50s music, Elvis, right? And then I got into Kiss as a kid and punk rock, right? So that's what I grew up on. Dan, on the other hand, I joke about it. I think he played in every New Jersey cover band, but Dan's big thing was, he's an amazing bass player. This is a guy who owns, I don't even know if he owns a 4-string bass. Everything's from 5-string, 6, 8, 10, 12. I'm like, dude, you got a guitar. It's not even a bass. I joke with him about that, but he's a very good player, and he's got a great ear, but he's a prog guy, right? So, and I'm not a prog guy. Not that I don't respect what they do. I don't know how they remember what they do. There's so much stuff going on. It just screws up my ADD brain. So, but when Dan and I come together to write, the amazing thing is when you're in a band situation, and there's a lot of members in bands, which is why you have a producer. Band members tend to listen for their part rather than record for the song, right? So it's not about whose part's going to be louder. It's about what is right for the song.
Yeah.
So that's where Dan and I work really well together, because we're not listening for a part. We're actually listening for the song.
When you take this out on tour, Steve, are you guys going to bring in other members to fill in for these songs? Like I know
Yes.
Johnny's done drumming on the track on this. Is he going to be part of this, or what's going on?
You know what? If Johnny's available, I would love to have Johnny. You know, Johnny's the consummate, ultimate drummer who's got the most groove and swing and feel. You know, it's like, you know, Johnny playing in Quiet Riot. I went to see them back in the summertime. Johnny's like, "What'd you think?" I'm like, "I've never heard Quiet Riot swing so much," right? Because Johnny's one of those, you know, he is the Bonham. He's the modern day Bonham slash Bill. Why am I drawing a blank? Black Sabbath.
Bill Ward.
Bill Ward. I'm sorry. Too early in the morning, but he's the modern day Bill Ward and John Bonham, right? He swings like he's not. Johnny's not a drummer who's just driving along a highway and it's smooth sailing, right? Johnny's one of these guys, right? He hits a bump and it's really good because that bump feels good, right? So that's his style of drumming, and it's so cool. But with like a band like he's playing with Quiet Riot, there's ebb and flow, which is interesting for Quiet Riot. It works, but Frankie Banali was he was straight ahead on top of the beat. Johnny's always kind of behind the beat, that's his style. That's a groove, man, and that's hard to do. But if he's available, I'd love to have him.
It amazes me, Steve, that every time I see Johnny Kelly and every time I talk to him, I go, "Johnny Kelly, no." He's always got a smile, and he's always impressing me with everything that he does. I mean, it doesn't matter what band you put him in, he knocks it out of the ballpark.
You know, I talk to Johnny probably every day, and been giving him advice that he's been building like a studio in his garage, and I turn him onto equipment to buy and stuff like that. And he's become a great for recording drums and stuff. He's got it down, like his sounds and stuff. But a lot of that has to do. It starts with the how you play it, right? You can give a person a $5,000 guitar. If they can't play it, they can't play it. It's going to sound like crap, right? You give you give a good player a $200 guitar, they're going to make it sound great, right? So you know he's really the consummate professional player, and when he does something, he really does it to the best of his ability.
This sophomore album, The Waiting, releases on March 3rd. How good does it feel to have this second album in the Blak29 music library, man?
You know, we did the first one called Love and Anger. Oh, man, it's about 6 years ago. You know, the first 2.5 years of lockdown and all that crap was a blur. So we have to take that out. And so I had been talking to Cleopatra Records for a long time. And we came to this agreement that they would put it out. They really liked the record. I am proud of it. You know, as I was joking before with my ADD, which I'm sure I have. Not only do I have ADD, I probably have ADD Supreme Plus. I've got the maximum subscription to ADD. You know, it's one of those things. Because my mind's always going to different places. But with these are songs I can listen to all the time without having to skip. because I'm really good, notorious for being on a treadmill for 30 minutes, and I'll go through 60 songs in 30 minutes because I can't finish one of them. But this I can actually listen to it. You know, as a writer, when there are songs you write that you like, and then there's songs that you write that hit a nerve. And I think from all of this, it hits a nerve within me. And I'm like, if it hits a nerve within me, maybe there are other people like that that'll actually feel that as well. You know, as a writer, you don't write for someone else. You don't write to jump on a bandwagon of whatever is going on out in music. You try to write for yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, you're the artist. This lives in infamy from now on, right? So it's like at some point, you know, back in the 70s, 80s, when there, or even 90s, when there was no digital, right? Unless somebody digitized it, you know, an album could get lost and you'll never hear about it. Now, today, you put something out, it lives forever in some way, shape, or form on some platform. So you're the one that has to be satisfied with it, you as the artist, because, again, that's a piece of you. And you never want to do something and go, oh, wow, I should have never done that.
Now, Raquel sent me this album. I'm telling you this right now, dude. I'm not saying this because you're on here. I'm just saying this is God's honest truth. There's not a bad song on this. And I'm, you know, it's been hard for me in the last 6 months to put on something and just continue to listen to it. You know,
I appreciate that. Again, you know, this was recorded over a series of actually a few years. And again, because of COVID, it kind of stopped us from doing certain things. And you know, again, as I said to you, we don't write for a particular style. We don't write for a particular subject. Mm-hmm. So when these songs come about, you'll notice on the album, it kind of goes like this, right? There's songs that are up here, there's songs that are here, and there's songs that are here. It just like whatever the moment is, that's what. But it to me, it was more of a feeling than anything. And I like to term the phrase like grand rock, right? Because people my age are grandparents. What is out there that is reverberating with people my age, younger and even older? They're all stuck in on these things, from songs from the 80s, songs from the 70s. And then, of course, the new stuff out there, a lot from the younger bands, is too, I don't know whether you want to call it emo or whatever the case may be. But I try to think of like what hits me, what affects me. And I really try to, try to capture that. I love energy in music. Without it, I got nothing. I can't, and look, you could play me a piece of music. I don't care if it's folk, if there's energy in it. I appreciate all music. I don't care if you're Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake. If the song is good, the song is good. Yeah. Right. It's all about a song. It's not about a riff. It's not about of course, there's a certain amount of image that is necessary, but I don't really think this is not an image band. To me, it's about feel. It's about, how it makes me feel, which I hope in turn, makes somebody else feel.
What led the track Destroyer to be the first song released off this album? What was about that song, Steve, that said that, hey, that's got to be the first one going out for us?
So Cleopatra, the A&R guy there, his name is Matt Green. Matt said to me, calls me up. He says, hey, myself and Brian Pereira, who's the owner of Cleopatra, we think that maybe you should think about doing a collaboration with Yerke from the 69 Eyes. So I'm like, oh, okay, why not? So I'm thinking now, it's not like a duet with a male and a female. That would have been really easy. I could have picked a ton of songs.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, what am I gonna do? What song? So I thought about, I grew up on punk rock, but I couldn't do a punk rock song. The words were too fast. I knew it was not in Yerke's wheelhouse to say it like a real fast song. So I'm thinking, like, what song? So I brought back from when I was a kid, right? And songs that kind of like hit a nerve, right? So one was Destroyer. Now on the CD, there's actually two songs. There's Destroyer, and then there's a song by the Hollies called Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress, right? So I chose those two songs. I'm like, well, we'll do two just in case one doesn't work. But they actually both worked. So I picked that song, and obviously I sent it to Yerke, and I said, here, you know what? Just sing the song. I'll pick the lines, and I'll edit them. And to me, it worked out pretty cool. It was really fun to do. And again, it was a song that I like, or if I could just get a little bit of a modern spin, to it, I think it'll work. And I wanted to hold true pretty much to the original aspect of the song, but with a little more intensity. And I think it really worked, and it was a lot of fun to do. And again, it brought me back to, I think that song came out in like 1979, 1980. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So did you guys want to put these two covers on, or how did they actually end up being on this new album?
Well, again, it was from the advice of Cleopatra, that they're like, you know what, it'd be cool if you did one with Yerke, and I think it would help you throughout Europe, because 69 Eyes are pretty popular in Europe.
Oh, sure.
And of course, Yerke's got this deep voice like this, and it's I think from my voice, which is a higher register compared to his, it was I think it worked. And that's really how it came to be, was by their advice. So
was there a track that you guys were working on that totally ended up sounding different than it was intended to for this album? Was there one that's just kept changing, or no?
There's tons of songs. There's songs that didn't make it to this album because you record more songs than you actually put out. And again, having my own studio is, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, right? Mm-hmm. So you keep the process moving. And at some point you got to go, we got to stop now and figure out what this is going to be. Because you can go on forever. You can go on forever and make changes, and it doesn't cost you anything except your own time. But there are songs that didn't make it because I not every song is a keeper. Maybe you revisit it somewhere down the road and make it a bit different. But yeah, there's a few songs that just, I don't know. You kind of hit a wall with them, and you go, you know what? Let's just move on.
Do you have any in the vault though from this that you're going to say, hey, no, we need to keep these for the next round, maybe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and what's interesting is you sit there and you go, you know what? This one's actually better than this, and it's like what we look at this album compared to our first album. You're like, this one's so much better. But I think as you progress, like I'm always trying to learn, right? Especially like with recording, and as technology advances, it's not like that I don't use technology to make shortcuts of things. For instance, using a digital platform to record like Pro Tools, I can easily cut and paste whatever I want, choruses. But we don't do that. We actually sing every chorus. It's just easier, right? Because as an artist, I can't be like a lot of the pop artists where you can tell what's cut and pasted. Mm-hmm. And so I can anyway, because I do this. I'd rather just do it for real. But again, as technology gets better, you learn how to simplify the process, where as a creator, you can get back to actually creating and recording at the same time. I don't bring in any engineers, which actually I'm actually going to start to do, bring in some young kids to help them with their craft, but also to help me to get more on the creative side. Because a lot of times, I'm running from my control room in here to my drum room on the other side of the wall, hit record, go back and forth. So I'll bring in somebody younger, I think, starting, to help with that process. If I can just create.
Any tracks standing out more to you than any right now on this album? I know these are your babies, man. I understand that. But do you have any tracks that are your favorite, possibly?
Yeah, I'm a simplistic person when it comes to songs. To me, less is more.
Mm.
And there's a few songs on here though, like Blackout, which is the lead off of the. It's simple, it's driving, it's to the point. And then there's songs like End of Days, Bleeding Love. There's a certain thing, like there's a song on there called The Waiting, and that song to me is my it reminds me of something from the 80s, from these old new wave dance clubs that you would hear. It's just got a little bit of that 80s vibe. I put some keyboard in there and stuff. So, there's just different things. It depends on, when we're writing a song, depends on my mood.
Mm.
All right. And again, I'm looking for what is going to make me feel good. And I'm hoping that goes over to the audience, because it's important that you feel that, but it's more important that I feel, because if I don't believe in it, how are you going to believe in it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. How can you put something out if you can't stand behind it? Yeah. How important was the track listing placement on this album?
We toyed around with it, right? So you make a playlist, on your computer, and you keep going, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, well, maybe where should this go? No, maybe we'll change this like this. You try to make it flow, right? Yeah. You never want two low songs together, right? You try to take, you try to, you hit a home run, you start here, you keep it going, then, okay, we're going to bring it down a little bit. All right, so now we bring it back up. But it was more really about how each, to me, again, it's about the energy. How does that energy flow? And because on the CD, the last song on the CD is the Holly song, which really, to me, was, I love the song. It's a song from the 70s and had so much energy. I'm like, there's a lot of albums that end with a filler song per se, yeah. Right? I didn't want that. I'm like, let's go out on a high note. So,
look, I know that you've been doing this for a very long time, and I know Dan has too, but what's the growth musically, Steve, you've seen from yourself and Dan working on this album as Blak29 versus the very first one, the debut one?
The growth, I think, comes from, look, when we started our first album, I think we were both unsure of each other, not of each other, but I was unsure of him until we wrote the first song. But then when you're in that process of writing and you're going, is this really going to make a difference? Can we really make an effect? Can we, I don't want to use technology. I'm not going to use a vocoder and sound like a Cher song or anything like that. But, can we take the technology and is this more of an experiment than it is a band?
Yeah.
With this album, it's a band. And even though it's two people, again, with the collaborations, obviously, not only Johnny Kelly, I don't want to forget to mention that on the 2 cover songs, Destroyer and Long Cool Woman, we also had Tommy Victor,
Right.
my brother in Prong and Danzig, and of course Prong, and they played on it. So to have them collaborate on it was awesome. You know, it's a blessing for me to be involved with 2 other great artists. In this situation, though, I had to envision this being played as a band rather than 2 guys getting together, you know, in a studio and making music. I had to envision this in a band. So now that we're actually putting the band together to go out to play shows, you know, it's going to be interesting because I need 2 guitar players. One has to play the overdub parts. And again, I didn't overproduce the record so that it can't be produced. We're not going to go out with tracks like a lot of bands do. And I'm not knocking people that use tracks. Look, you know, unfortunately, as I said, with studios, you can overproduce, you can do so many things, then you have to replicate that. And that's why bands use tracks, because they need to have that fullness. And there's, again, I'm not knocking it. Look, technology is where it is because we have it, you use it. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather take that energy, the real energy, the live energy, and send that out to the audience rather than rely on, you know, something.
With this new technology and the evolution of music and how it's went, recording and everything the way it is, do you think it's helped musicians, or do you think it's kind of, you know, hurt them a little bit?
You know, that's an interesting question, and I got to be careful how I answer that, because there are so many great bands that are relying on technology.
Yeah.
You rely on technology because maybe you're older, you can't hit the notes. If you're a vocalist, you have a lot of parts in a song that you're trying to look. There are old bands that never relied on it, right? That now rely on it for playing the same songs that they created 30, 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they don't think they have it in them to do that. They don't think they have that energy anymore. So they try to make up for it using technology. Again, I'm not knocking it. I don't know if I'll ever do that someday. But you know, at the same point, if you think about it, you know, years ago, you'd go out and you would have, for a guitar player, right, you'd have a Marshall and you'd put some kind of box and you were done, right? Today, you can, technology consists of racks of gear for a guitar player to emulate sounds that you did in a studio. So in using technology like that, I am not against. I think it's actually pretty amazing that you can actually recreate that. What I'm saying, as far as tracks where they're using obviously multiple rhythms in behind you, or keyboard parts and things like that, and the drummer obviously has to play to a click track. Again, nothing wrong with it. I think you kind of lose that swing in the music.
I seen where Zakk Wylde was selling his mini Doom, as he calls it, his little mini guitar and a little mini amplifier not too long ago. And I thought it was cool that he's like, you can now hook your phone up to this amp and get the heads like Marshall. I mean, he was going through it on his phone. I was like, oh my God, all those apps that you could get for different sounds. Like, son of a bitch.
I have a friend who basically can do a, I don't know, I guess it's USB or something, through his phone, out of his phone into an amp, like you said, and get all these modelers, you know, of different sounds through his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit there, you scratch your head, you're like, you don't even have to bring an amp to a gig anymore.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing, but then again, it's like the authenticity is like,
you know, you can't you can't overlook things, because then you look like, oh, you're the old man in the room and you can't embrace technology. I love technology. I am a studio buff. I love gear. But I always tell people, at the end of the day, it's not about a plug-in on a computer. It's not about a preset on a computer. It's about using your own ears, right? Because you can use these plugins, and there's presets for everything, right? It'll give you a preset to master or sound like this or this, but you don't know how they made that preset, what they were using, who was doing it, right? Whose ear is different than mine. Look, I can give you a song. I can give 5 other people a song, and everybody, if I asked you to mix a song, everyone's going to mix it differently, because everybody has their own their own ears. I like to use my ears. At the end of the day, no matter what plugin you have, if you were going by that, well, then you might as well just dump it into a computer and have the whole thing done for you. Use your own ears. That's why you're a musician. There are electronic musicians that just use sounds out of a box, but I like to be more creative than that.
So a lot of bands, Steve, these days, you know it just as well as I do, they go the EP route, but you guys released a full-length album. Does the full-length fit this band right now, just for this album specifically, or did you want to go an EP route?
No, I think the album was the right way to go. I thought there were a lot of great songs on here. I like every single one of them. Every single one, has some meaning to me, and I can figure out where I was and when I wrote it. I don't, an EP, for instance, Mourning Noise, we came out with a new EP back in November, 5 songs, and it worked for that. I think, prior to that EP for Mourning Noise, there was a full length release of items of stuff from when the band first started 40 years ago. So I think we were testing the waters, because we did get Robbie Bloodshed, on vocals.
My boy.
And, Robbie's great, talented.
Yes.
And it works for us in Mourning Noise. So, but we were testing the waters, right? You take a mature band like Mourning Noise and you're like, a full length, let's test the waters, we'll do an EP. And it seemed to do really well. So we actually have a new, a new EP, a whole album in the can right now. Hopefully it'll come out within the next year. But for Blak29, it worked, because I think there were plenty of good songs that needed to be heard.
And I'm very proud of my buddy Robbie Bloodshed, because I've seen him come up to what he's doing now, and I'm very proud of him to see the growth that he's made, and just, man, he just keeps killing it.
He's very talented. I remember him as a kid coming to Danzig shows. His dad would take him. He's grown a lot. He's become a good friend. And it's always a pleasure working with him. His mind never stops.
What do you hope everybody takes away from this album, man? But when they start to listen, what do you hope they get from it, Steve?
I hope they feel an energy. I hope like, even with a song like Destroyer, you throw something on there that'll take you back to a moment in time where you felt happy, right? You think about this. A lot of new bands, or a lot of old bands, come out with new music and nobody cares. Look at artists like Billy Joel, who hasn't come out with a new album in 33 years, I think it is. And why is that? Nobody cares about new music from an established artist. And I'm not saying every artist. I'm saying in most artists. And why is that? I've come to the conclusion personally that people want to go see a band, whether it's Kiss, whether it's Billy Joel, Elton John. They want to go see them and it takes them back to a time where they didn't have problems, where the crap today that's going on in the world didn't exist. And if it did, you weren't paying attention to it. You were living life. You were young, free. You had energy. You were much healthier. You were just free from all the, I don't know if I could say the bullshit that encompasses your life today.
Yeah.
You have much more responsibilities today, right? Whether it's owning a home, having a family, maybe it's both. Maybe you're going through crap with loved ones that are getting ill or passed away. You didn't have that pretty much at 15, 16, 17, 18, through your 20s or even early 30s. So people want to go back to a moment in time, and they want to hear that music that really takes them back to that time, because they feel that point of their life where they were the most happiest. I'm hoping with our record and with the few cover songs that are on there, that'll take people back to a moment of time, and then they'll give the rest of the record a chance. And you go, you know what? This feels pretty good. I can latch on to this.
And I honestly think you'll do it, man. This album, like I said, it's very good. Again, I'm going to listen to it again today.
I appreciate it. You know what? It makes me feel good that, you know, you can say that and you feel that, you know, it makes me feel good. So again, having ADD Supreme, if it makes me feel good and I can latch onto it, I think I did okay.
Is there a show, and I know you played a lot of shows, man, but is there a show specifically that you could not believe that you are a part of? And I know Danzig's in a lot of stuff. I know Samhain's in a lot of stuff, but is there one that just sticks out for you that says, I can't believe I did that?
There are many. You know, you hit milestones as a musician, and especially with Danzig, right?
Mm-hmm.
Danzig has had this resurgence in the past 10 years, playing to more people than the band ever played to. The success of the band, if you look at people being in the band prior to me, you know, you think that in 1993 or whatever, you thought they were at the pinnacle of their career. And of course, every band has its ups and downs. I don't care what band you are. Danzig, the past, like I said, even the past 5 years has been having this upward trajectory where people now bring their kids, and their kids are into it. There's certain shows, like we did a sold out show at the Roundhouse in London, and you go, wow, the bands that played at this place, the Ramones, Zeppelin, the Who, you know, or you play in front of 80,000 people, and then you know, you play some of these shows and you're like, for instance, we opened for Kiss back in October. And you're like, now we played with Kiss before out in Scandinavia, but doing that show in front of 50,000 people, you sit there and you're like, wow, I'm just a kid from Lodi, New Jersey. Never thought that the bands I was listening to as a kid, we'd be playing with. And then, of course, playing with people that you tour with, like when we played with Phil Anselmo and, you know, his band, Superjoint Ritual, they were opening for us, you know, and you look at a guy like Phil, right? It's Phil Anselmo.
That's right.
You know, and he's standing there outside of the stage, or when we played with Metallica at Golden Gods Awards, and they're standing on the side of the stage and they're watching you, and you come to this realization that, you know, you're hitting these milestones, personal milestones, but the greatest part is not playing for people that of your peers. It's for playing to the audience where someone says, you changed my life. Watching you play, I picked up a bass guitar, or I started playing drums because of you. And you sit there and you kind of take that in, and you're like, and you start questioning, like, what did I do? But maybe they felt my energy, right? There are nights you go up there and you don't feel good. You could be sick. You can't let that be known. You got to do, my point is, you're spending your money to come see my band. I have to give it my all.
Mm-hmm.
I can't show you how I feel on the inside. That's not your problem. That's my problem. But to affect somebody in that manner, or you know, you talk to fans, and you know, who tells you that their brother died, their husband died, their wife died, whatever the case may be, and you kind of give them a little shoulder to cry on, and they remember that. So when it comes to like what show or whatever, that's hard to say, man. I think it's about communicating with your audience, and that's every show.
Yeah, and like when I saw you guys on the Danzig 25th anniversary tour, I mean, I was in awe because I wanted to see Danzig forever. I was like, hell yeah, I could see the man Danzig. But what really, and I met you in the crowd too. You was walking around. I think I kind of stunned you, like, who's this guy? But anyway, the hairs on my arm, man, were standing up because I was just in awe because of seeing Doyle come out and do a set of the Misfits songs. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I got chills on me right now talking about it. Just to seeing that live, man, was just ultra.
Those shows were a lot of fun. You know, Doyle and I grew up with each other.
Yeah.
We're each other's oldest friends. We grew up going from kindergarten through high school together. He's the reason how I met Glenn, right? Taking me to an early Misfits rehearsal, sitting in his garage. And that, you know, that changed my life, listening to that, seeing that experience is something, you know, that's the experience that you could never pay for.
Yeah.
It changed the course of my life.
And you know, me being at that show, I didn't know he was going to come out and do that. I mean, I kind of was hoping. I know he was there, but you never know what's going to go on these shows. You know what I mean? But it just went into a full set, and I was like, oh, shit. And I mean, Glenn didn't even have to sing the song, Steve. You know this. Everybody was singing them. All you had to do is hit the chord, and that was it. Everybody was singing them. He had to do nothing. I mean,
it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, it's how your energy comes to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. It's still till this day when I stand on stage with Glenn, takes me back when I hear his voice. We just did a Danzig Elvis show last Friday, a week ago today, and where I'm playing drums on that, and you sit there and I'm playing, and I'm concentrating on playing, but at the same time, I'm listening to this man sing these songs that he loves, that affected him. Now he gets this energy across to the audience, right? So it comes full circle. These are songs that he kind of grew up on, and now he's introducing, you know, his take on it to a younger audience, and it's a full circle.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody's going to go, and they're going to probably go, you know, find the way Elvis did it, but listen to the way Glenn does it. and his voice is just amazing. It cuts through like butter. It's like unbelievable. And I'm sitting there playing, and I sometimes I start to get lost because I'm listening to him, and it takes me back to the garage 45 years ago, where I stood there and the heavens opened up, and it's like, this is friggin' amazing. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to play in a band with that guy someday.
That's awesome. God, that's awesome. Have we seen the last of Danzig releasing any new songs, albums, or does he have any material that you know of, maybe, that he's working on?
Look, I think Glenn writes music all the time. You know, again, as I said before, if anything, Danzig is pretty interesting. Do you go out and do you sell, 500,000, 1 million records anymore? Not unless you're Taylor Swift or whatever, right? And you have, but I think for Danzig, there's an audience that buys records. The Danzig Sings Elvis record has done tremendous, right? The success on it was amazing. Sometimes you have to look at what your return on your investment is. It's a matter of how much time you need to put into it, and what are you really going to get out of it. It comes down to, a lot of times, it comes down to dollars and cents. Glenn is an artistic person. You're not going to get the same thing twice from him. That's just not the way he is. Otherwise, every album would have another mother on it.
Yeah.
That's not the way he is. And, he's been into producing his movies, which people go, well, he's an artist. Why is he, he's a musician. Why is he doing movies? Glenn is not just a musician. If you look at Glenn, designing album covers, Glenn is a true artist. He comes full circle. He does the music, he does the art, he does the film. You can't, and he's been in the position to be able to do stuff like the films. So I think that's part of his own legacy, is to fulfill his dreams. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Music, maybe, I don't know. We haven't really spoke about it. I think, I think when he's ready, when he feels that urge to have something to say or want to be able to put something new out, maybe he'll do it. It's tough. Again, it's timing, right? Like I said, he does the movies, that takes up a lot of time. We're still doing shows, and he vowed that he's done, but he's got Misfits, he's got Danzig. If he ever wanted to pull out a wild card and do Samhain, we could do that too.
Yeah. So
he's got a lot going on. And again, I think a lot of it is, if people want to go hear the old stuff, takes them back.
Yeah.
It gives them that energy, that sense of youth, right? And how important is that to myself, to any artist whose past work can make someone feel like that? That's not easy, man.
No.
That's going to the gas station and refilling the gas tank with friggin' ultra fuel, right? Gives you that spark. Like, God, that was so good.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Will we put out something? I don't know. Maybe.
BLak29 will release their sophomore album entitled The Waiting via Cleopatra Records on March 3rd. Get out and pick this up and support this band. Trust me, I've got to listen to this and preview it. It's great. It's great. And like I said, I'm not saying this because Steve's on here or anything like that. It's just a legit good album. And definitely check out Singles Destroyer and their new single that just dropped yesterday. The time this interview is going on, Bleeding Love. Check that single out. Steve, my friend, how can folks stay in touch with you, Blak29, buy these albums, singles, everything under the name of Blak29? How can they do that, good sir?
Instagram, Facebook, Steve Zing at stevezing.com. I made it easy.
And I will have all of these links in this podcast when it launches. So there's no mistaking for somebody to say, I don't know where to go get it. It'll be right here. Cannot miss it, folks. Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do another promo for my show?
Absolutely. This is Steve Zing from Danzig, Samhain, Mourning Noise, and Blak29. And you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Please get out, check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link and that YouTube link of ours that you desperately need to go and subscribe to, because we got a lot of great stuff coming out. And I'm at 995 right now. Get me to 1K. What's going on? The 1,000 subscriber, I told you we'll eat a bologna sandwich on here. We'll talk music, all kinds of good stuff. So do that for me, please. And Steve, again, thank you so much for being on this podcast. And everybody, get out and check out Blak29. You'll dig this stuff. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.